What's good, Internet? It's your boy Corey from the Hardwood Herald, and today we're going to look at LaMelo Ball and try to figure out what exactly is the best landing spot for him now that the NBA draft lottery order is set. Now, LaMelo Ball is no ordinary prospect. He's probably one of the more intriguing prospects the draft has ever seen. And he's had no ordinary journey in getting here. From his time as basically a kid Kardashian at Chino Hills, all the way to his journey to the NBL, LaMelo's path has been anything but normal. Now, LaMelo's an interesting prospect because nobody really knows what he could turn into. He could be a Trae Young-Luka Doncic combo, but he could just as easily be a combo of Jason Williams and Jamal Crawford. He's going to need the perfect situation to make the most of his skills. You see, LaMelo's a lot like a freestyle rapper. He does things that no other prospect can do. He can read the game so quickly, everything feels like it's coming straight off the top of the dome. But can he be Drake? Can he make a hit record? Can he run an NBA offense? These are the questions that NBA front offices are going to have to ask themselves when they're on the clock and LaMelo is staring them in the face. There were two teams that moved up into the top 4 on draft lottery night: the Charlotte Hornets and the Chicago Bulls. But we'll get to the Bulls in a little bit. For now, I want to talk about why LaMelo is such an intriguing fit on the Charlotte Hornets. The first thing that comes to mind is that LaMelo Ball and Devontae Graham would form a potent offensive backcourt. Devontae Graham made a major leap in his year 2 and is a certified most improved player candidate. Having two guys in your backcourt who are dynamic ball handlers and shot makers who can also create for their teammates is exactly what you want out of a modern NBA offense. Secondly, the Charlotte Hornets have done a pretty okay job drafting in recent years relative to their draft position, but they've got guys who are finishers, not creators. Miles Bridges is a super entertaining swingman who is ridiculously athletic and is just waiting to put you on a poster. Wouldn't you want to see him running the wings alongside LaMelo in transition? I mean, LaMelo and Miles Bridges is kind of like a poor man's Lonzo and Zion. Maybe a very poor man's. Next, just last year, the Charlotte Hornets drafted PJ Washington out of Kentucky. PJ Washington was a big surprise for a lot of people, and he really proved that he could stretch the floor. He's kind of the perfect power forward to play next to LaMelo Ball. You see, LaMelo played with a bunch of guys in the NBL who, weren't exactly snipers, but he still made them better in that pick and pop action. If LaMelo was making his teammates better in the NBL out of the pick and pop, what could he do for a certified NBA player like PJ Washington? Now, my only concern with LaMelo in Charlotte is LaMelo's not really known as a defender. As a matter of fact, he's probably one of the worst defensive guards in this entire draft. And Charlotte doesn't really have any big men to cover for him. If the Charlotte Hornets do end up with LaMelo Ball with the 3rd pick on draft night, they're going to have to build the team around him. We've already talked about some of the pieces offensively, but defensively they're going to have to go get that big man who could protect the rim, switch out on pick and rolls, and just make up for what LaMelo lacks on that side of the ball. But if they could do that, and they could be patient, and they can continue to build with shooters and athletic guys who can run the wing, and defensive players to make up for LaMelo, the Charlotte Hornets can really build something special. And LaMelo Ball on the Hornets can really turn that franchise around. And hey, if all else fails, at least we'll finally get that LeVar versus Jordan one-on-one. Now, the other team that bumped up into the top 4 was my Chicago Bulls. Now, anyone who's followed me over the last few months knows that I'm not exactly the biggest LaMelo Ball fan. But I cannot lie and say that he wouldn't be a really fun fit in a backcourt with Zach LaVine and Kobe White. See, if there's one thing the Bulls have been missing over the last few years, it's a guy who can make dynamic plays. And LaMelo Ball is the most dynamic playmaker in the 2020 NBA draft. Zach LaVine and Kobe White, look, they're straight up buckets. But they're not the best at getting other guys involved. Zach LaVine and Kobe White aren't point guards. They're not guys that you want to be primary playmakers. Putting a guy like LaMelo Ball next to them alleviates that pressure. They can just focus on getting buckets. This is a big year for Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter. And both guys would be better served if they had a better playmaker than Tomas Satoransky. See, Lauri's going into year 4, and the Bulls need to know, what do they have in this guy? Is he the 19-10 sharpshooting big man that we saw in his second year? Or is he this kind of lackadaisical 14-7 guy that we saw in year 3? We mentioned it before when we talked about LaMelo's fit in Charlotte with PJ Washington. But Larry is kind of a supercharged version. He's bigger, a little bit more dynamic off the bounce, and really should just be a bigger bucket. If there's one thing that I would want to see as a Bulls fan with LaMelo, is if he could get Larry back to that year 2 guy that we all know he's capable of being. Next, let's talk about LaMelo's fit with Wendell Carter. See, Wendell was kind of neutered playing in Jim Boylan's offense. He was a guy who was super skilled coming out of Duke. He could pass it a little bit, he could shoot it a little bit, score with either hand around the hoop, and we know that he can defend. I want to see what LaMelo can do for Wendell offensively. I mentioned that Wendell's a great passer, and in most modern NBA offenses, you need a big who's capable of making passes out of the short roll. Well, LaMelo is going to get him the ball exactly where he needs to allow Wendell to get that ball in that short roll area and make plays for his teammates. That gives you not 1, but 2 playmakers on your team. And when you have guys like Larry, Zach, and Kobe who are going to be finishers, you need multiple playmakers. Second, now if you had Larry, Zach, and Kobe spreading the floor, and LaMelo and Wendell running a pick and roll, I would love to see what those 2 together could do as a lob target. We're talking alley-oops for days. But the thing that Wendell does for LaMelo, most of all, is he covers for him defensively. We talked about how the Charlotte Hornets don't really have that guy, but the Chicago Bulls do. They might have 2 with Daniel Gafford. But that's the thing. LaMelo needs the team to be built around him to fit his weaknesses. And the biggest thing that Wendell Carter can offer LaMelo Ball is that defensive presence, saving him with shots at the rim. Now, my third favorite spot that LaMelo could possibly land, and I'm going to be honest, it's a bit of a long shot, is the Phoenix Suns. We just watched Phoenix go nuclear in the bubble to the tune of a perfect 8-0 record, and unfortunately, they didn't make the playoffs, which landed them a spot in the lottery. Right now, they're slated to pick 10th, so they're really going to have to do some finagling and wheeling and dealing if they want to trade up to get to a spot where they could possibly take LaMelo Ball. But we saw what Devin Booker looks like next to a competent point guard in Ricky Rubio. Well, if you're able to get the most out of LaMelo, besides the defensive end, LaMelo is like a supercharged version of Ricky, only taller, and hopefully a better shooter, although that might take a while. But the Suns have other players besides Devin Booker that LaMelo can really make the most out of. Guys like Mikal Bridges and Kelly Oubre, Cam Johnson, and DeAndre Ayton. I mentioned it before with Wendell Carter, but DeAndre Ayton is a supercharged version of Wendell Carter when it comes to being a lob target. In the bubble, DeAndre Ayton even showed off the ability to pick and pop. You put a weapon like that next to Melo, and man, it's going to be fun. Pick and pops, alley-oops, we're talking daily House of Highlights appearances. Like I mentioned, it'd be a tough road for Phoenix to actually get in the LaMelo sweepstakes. But man, what a backcourt that would be. The Phoenix Suns are kind of like the good version of the Chicago Bulls. You just don't see players with his height, his vision, and his ability to kind of handle the spotlight because he's been famous since he was a little kid. I can't wait to see where LaMelo lands on draft night. I may not be as high on him as some other people are, but I can't deny that his potential is otherworldly. And if he pans out, you're looking at one of the 3 best players in the NBA. There are going to be some growing pains with LaMelo. He's kind of like your crazy ex. They're a ton of fun when things are great, but you kind of hate everything about them when things are bad. There's going to be a lot of those moments. He's going to take 40-foot bombs 8 seconds into the shot clock, and he's going to get blown by on D. But if you put him with a franchise that has the patience, the player development staff, and the players around him to get the most out of him, we're looking at a potential superstar.
What's good, Internet? It's your boy, Eddie Curry. Make sure to catch your boys, Corey and Larry, on the Hardwood Herald Morning NBA show. Morning Wood, every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on YouTube and Twitter.